good to have you join us today. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Lee Ji-yoon in Seoul. Coming up on today's edition of Business Daily. Korean manufacturers turn slightly more optimistic about business conditions for March as exports continue to recover. Korean households are earning less and they're spending less, to the point where experts are worried that growth could be dragged down altogether. We'll sit down with an expert to talk about this. Some hopeful signs on the business front. Korean manufacturers' business sentiment has risen for a second month in a row, and their outlook for the coming months show that their expectations for the economy are rising. Arirang reports.
Riding on the back of improving exports, business sentiment among Korean manufacturers seems to be warming up. The Bank of Korea says the business survey index of manufacturing firms stood at 76 in February, up 1 point from the month before, marking its second straight month of an increase. It's also the highest figure recorded in nearly 2 years. However, a figure under 100 still means pessimists outnumber optimists. Breaking it down, the sentiment figure for large conglomerates edged up a single point, while that of local exporters, where firms with more than half of their sales coming from overseas markets, jumped 2 points. The electrical equipment sector saw a rise in sentiment on the back of stronger global demand for semiconductors and display panels. Looking ahead, the forecast seems relatively hopeful as well. Korean manufacturers' outlook for March came to 81 as they expect to see an increase in domestic demand as well as exports. The Bank of Korea says that of the roughly 2,800 companies surveyed, local firms' sentiment toward exports came to 92, up from 90 in February. The index for domestic sales, too, edged up 1 point to 90, and the sentiment of non-manufacturing companies spiked by 4 points to 77 from the 73 this month. In a separate survey by the Federation of Korean Industries, overall business sentiment for March reached a 5-month high. But concerns about the health of exports down the road continue to linger among some business sectors, citing the Trump administration's protectionist trade measures. There are also questions hanging over the government's latest measures, announced Monday, that are aimed at ensuring Korea's exports remain on strong footing and will play their part in brightening business sentiment. Shin Se-min, Business Daily.
The de facto head of Korea's largest conglomerate, Samsung Group, is set to be indicted. Special prosecutors said they will issue charges of bribery and others against the Samsung Electronics Vice Chairman Lee Jae-yong, who was placed under arrest 11 days ago. Prosecutors will also indict 4 other Samsung executives as their months-long probe into the wide-reaching Choi corruption scandal draws to a close on this Tuesday. The executives are suspected of passing on or promising to pass on a combined $36 million in bribes to Choi for her influence to smooth out a succession plan for the younger Lee. While admitting to the money transfer, Samsung has maintained that it expected no special favors. And Samsung Group has announced a set of internal reforms, beginning with the scrapping of its future strategy office. The so-called control tower of Korea's largest conglomerate has been a lightning rod of criticism since it was set up in 1959 as the group founder Lee Byung-chul's secretariat. De facto head Lee Jae-yong had promised to dismantle the office after it was accused of inking dubious deals with the president's longtime confidant, Choi Soon-sil. With the removal, Samsung says its authority will flow back to the board of directors of each company to enhance independent management. The move is seen as reflecting the group's resolve to cut collusive ties with those holding political powers. But some warn that the removal of the office may deal a blow to the group's big-picture planning. The most exciting time of the year for tech fans are here as the curtain has gone up on this year's Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. It's a chance for global tech companies to showcase their latest products and services that incorporate state-of-the-art technologies. Ari Kim Min-ji files this report from Barcelona.
What's the next element in mobile technology? Attendees at the Mobile World Congress 2017 will put their heads together over the next 4 days, discussing just that at the annual event, which kicked off on Monday.
The next element in mobile technology could be anything from artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, virtual reality, or all of them together. And that synergy is basically designed to make our lives more convenient and smarter.
And tech companies are showing off their latest products and services that incorporate these state-of-the-art technologies as they aim to set trends for the years to come. This year, there's a heavy focus on autonomous and connected vehicles, which are expected to boost safety and provide an all-new entertainment service while on the go, via ultra-quick 5G networks, a step forward from the current 4G.
The car-to-car communication can get more information, understand each other. For example, one car maybe want to turn the left, and another car maybe can get information. And also the car to people is the same thing. Someone across the street and the car can recognize someone there and can slow down or maybe stop.
Companies are also using artificial intelligence to make our lives more comfortable. Voice-activated AI platforms are able to understand and process commands, doing whatever you tell them to do.
You can turn off and turn on the lights to change TV channels, switch on the air conditioning, and so on. You can ask her to learn some languages you don't know. You can practice with her.
Taking it a step further, AI can be used to look at text in a number of different languages and break down the current emotional state and personality traits of a person. This is expected to provide ample business opportunities down the road.
Understanding information that's buried within, deep documents or images or, that kind of information, the ability to extract something valuable out of it adds a tremendous asset. So we really do think what this shows is kind of a much deeper benefit that a broad range of industries can see.
It shows there are no boundaries when it comes to mobile innovation, but it remains to be seen whether these technologies will grab the attention of consumers and become part of our daily lives. The stagnant mobile industry is in desperate need for new areas of growth that will complement the ever more powerful hardware on offer. Kim Min-ji, Business Daily, Barcelona.
And talking about high-tech cars, Hyundai Motor Group is working with the government to hit the pedal on realizing self-driving vehicles sooner than later. Our Eunice Kim tells us what progress is being made.
Artificial intelligence and cutting-edge IT come together in the fully automated car, a concept still being crafted, but once realized, expected to be a game-changer for the auto industry. That's why global car makers Ford and GM are putting billions of dollars toward the venture. And Hyundai Motor Group, working with the Korean government, is getting warmed up to catch up. A fully automated vehicle is seen as being years away. On the spectrum of automation levels, Korean technology is assessed to be at level 2, partial automation. That triggers self-steering and acceleration with a requisite driver on standby to take over when needed. Hyundai Motor, which presented test drives of an autonomous Ioniq at CES last month, has its eyes on commercializing a Level 3 autonomous car within 3 years and a fully self-driving vehicle by 2030. To facilitate, the government is aiming to finish crafting its safety evaluation guideline by 2019, which would include elements of driving safety, a backup safety trigger, and in-vehicle communication security. The Transport Ministry will work to amend existing regulations and create a legal infrastructure for autonomous driving, addressing issues like insurance and matters of ethics. In a public step toward its goal, Hyundai Motor Group launched its Intelligence Safety Technology Center on the 13th that will aggregate research resources from Hyundai and Kia Motors. The R&D Center tasked with the 2020-2030 goal is led by Lee Ji-nu, a head researcher recruited from General Motors, where he worked on self-driving cars for more than a decade. Experts say the automaker has its work cut out, as other global rivals are already working to achieve Level 4 automation, underlining the government must keep up with private sector efforts as well. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
Korean households' income grew at the slowest pace on record last year, while spending also fell, reflecting slowing growth amid uncertainties at home and abroad. Take a look.
For the first time since 2009, Korea's real household income adjusted for inflation declined, sliding 0.4% last year. And with this, real household consumption also dropped 1.3% to an average of $2,900. According to Statistics Korea, in nominal terms, the average monthly income for Korean households stood at around $3,800 last year, up 0.6% on year, marking the slowest growth since related data was compiled in 2003. The latest figures show that households are increasingly snapping their purses shut, logging a monthly surplus of $915 last year. Overall, this signals that consumers are tightening their belts in the face of a growing sense of instability and uncertainty from conditions both at home and abroad. This has become a great source of concern for the government, which has been laying out various measures to stimulate spending again. But many question the effectiveness of such moves and whether they'll be able to produce lasting results.
And to tell us more about this, Professor Yang Jun-seok from the Catholic University of Korea joins us in the studio today. Great to have you here.
Happy to be here.
So like we heard in the report, Korea's real household income and spending fell for the first time since the global financial crisis. So at this point, we're wondering, what does this tell us about the state of our real economy right now?
Okay, well, that tells you basically that we aren't very healthy. The fact that the savings went up and the income and spending both went down seems that we're stuck in this recessionary mindset. And the problem is the numbers themselves aren't bad, at least compared to some of the other cases we had in the past, like 97, 98 financial crisis. But we've never had a slowdown this long. So I think people are getting set in their mindset, and that's why people are getting so pessimistic about the future of the economy.
And also, Korea's average monthly household budget surplus hit the highest ever last year. Tell us more about this.
Okay, well, most of that is going to savings, and I think there's 4 factors which are really increasing savings and lowering spending.
Okay.
The first is low income because of the economic slowdown as well as unemployment for the young. Second is that people are insecure about the future. So they don't know when they'll be fired, or they don't know if their income will change. So they're saving more. And then third, there's insecurity about retirement. Partially that's because Korea doesn't have a safety net. Partially it's because the interest rate has been so low that the amount that they need to save, the principal, has gone up substantially.
Right.
And then lastly, the household debt has went up. So a lot of people have to pay back the debt rather than spend.
Now, this decline in spending is triggering concerns about a fall in demand as well as an overall slowdown in economic growth.
Yeah, and that's worrying because, well, if you look at how the consumption fell, we call it propensity to spend. It fell from the average propensity to spend fell from 0.74 4 years ago to 0.71 last year.
Okay.
And the falling propensity to spend really makes it harder to reinvigorate the economy through monetary or fiscal policy. So that makes the government's job much more difficult. And also, Korea's share of consumption in GDP is substantially less than other advanced countries. It's only about 50% more or less. And unless we can get this higher, chances are economy will not recover very quickly.
Now, so in response to all this, I guess the government has laid out various measures to boost investment and spending just last week and also just yesterday. So tell us more about these plans and whether they're deemed effective.
Okay, well, last week they introduced a lot of measures to try to increase consumption. This week they introduced a lot of plans to try to increase trade and investment. But if you look at that, the plans which were announced, it's really a hodgepodge of different little incentives, different little measures. So it's like the government just rounded up everything that they had on the plan, everything they submitted to Regulatory Reform Committee for their review, and then just put it up as a plan.
Okay.
Now, there are several factors I like, there are several factors I don't like, there's several factors which comes up again and again, which I'm not sure it's very useful. But while I do agree that these type of measures to increase productivity are very useful and very necessary for the future, it doesn't deal with that 4 factors I mentioned earlier, at least for the most part. There are a couple of measures which I like earned income for the low income people, but still it doesn't deal with that 4 major factors. So while we do need those productivity enhancing policies, we also need something to deal with the 4 income related, job security related items I mentioned earlier.
So going along with that, some are actually saying that the government needs to take a different approach, considering that the Korean economy is already on rocky grounds.
Okay, well, I would like to deal with this 4 factors one at a time.
Okay.
First, dealing with the low income. We've been trying to increase growth for the last 5-6 years. That hasn't been very helpful, which doesn't mean we shouldn't try. I favor fiscal policy for this. And then second, insecurity about their jobs in the future. A lot of people say that we have to increase labor regulations to increase job security. I'm actually at the other side.
Okay.
Maybe you have to free up the regulations for the labor market. So yes, it may mean less jobs for now, but once the economy recovers, more jobs. That comes up quickly. So while you may be some insecure about which job you'll have, maybe you'll be more secure about how much income you'll have. And third, the insecurity about retirement. We need more social safety net to deal with that. And then lastly, household debt. How to deal with household debt has always been such a big problem. If for lower income people who borrow money for cost of living, I think they should replace that with welfare policies so that they can't pay back the money anyway. So let's just give them welfare money that they can consume. For the higher income people who borrow money for housing, well, let's make sure that they don't have to repay all the principal at once if they do have to repay, because that's going to ruin those households. I think we need to deal with those 4 factors as well as the productivity enhancing hodgepodge measures that the government announced earlier.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.